Right, it is recording. We're live.
Okay, good.
So I will now share my screen, Jonathan. And is that coming up okay? So
Yeah,
this
I'm
this
seeing
is
that clearly.
yeah. So this is basically my takeaways from the first pillar of a crisis management course that Harvard Business School has offered to all their alumni. So there was 1,700 people on this first webinar.
Wow.
Which was incredible. So this was like 10 days ago now, this one. And they basically started by getting some perspectives from the group with some polling around what's going on where you are. So this was 10 days ago. You could see that 91% of schools were shut, of what's pretty much a global view given the audience that were on this call.
Yeah.
And then the scary thing is the amount of businesses that were looking at 25% income reduction or more, as an immediate effect of this.
And I think some of those might have been over optimistic at that stage. I think they could be seeing worse than that now.
Yeah. So this was the reality starting to sink in with a lot of people.
Yeah.
So they'd framed this and built this off the current crisis leadership program, which uses this risk matrix to help people understand how to manage risks. And basically, without going through this table in detail, they basically said, well, now we're off the chart in terms of risk management.
Yeah.
So we're beyond the known boundaries. So he said, he drew this live, the presenter, who was very good. He said, we normally manage risk based on frequency and consequence. These ones out here are, really things to worry about, but earthquakes, etc. And then these are sort of more routine risks. But then he sort of zoomed out and said, this known area is in this bottom left-hand corner of where we're now uncertain about frequency and uncertain about consequences. Basically said we're sort of off the chart on risk.
Yes.
So we're used to managing risk by dealing with known risks, known frequency, and known consequences. He said that's sort of tractable. Tractable was the word he used. And we now face.
What we do know about this situation is that the consequences are enormous.
Yes.
So we know that in terms of consequence, it's way off on the right-hand side. In a way, whilst that consequence isn't measurable or predictable, I think we all know it's huge.
Yes.
We've still got kind of uncertainty about frequency.
Yes. So it's sort of a shock almost in this, in the way this was being described collectively. This was with input from the group, not just from, a one-way traffic in the conversation. And the key thing that came out was it will last a lot longer than we are collectively assuming.
Yes.
And I'm detecting that talking to people that I'm not quite sure that, if they're worried, if they're not worried, it's like, well, maybe they should be without being alarmist, but this is a global perspective on this. They captured from the audience live, what's different about this in terms of the situation and its demand on leadership. So you can see some of the things that we're saying. It's just, you can't see the end game. Currently in the UK, we're even reluctant to talk about how we might step out of the current restrictions as a population. It's continually moving. It's global. It's right across suppliers, customers, competitors. And then obviously these pressures it's placing on us and everybody as leaders. We said earlier, can't find, what's the new word that's even more than unprecedented?
Yes.
Nobody's, what is a stronger word than unprecedented? So I did capture some screen grabs as we went. So I'm not going to go through all of the detail here, but just some things that struck me about how they were thinking about it was he used the term, it's major emergencies are like a volcano because it's a whole load of uncertainty. It could continue to spew lava, it could throw out an earthquake or an explosion, and you don't know how long it's going to last for, and you've no control over that. So it's quite a nice analogy. and then they're making the points. Yeah, there's that word again. Virtually nothing's known.
Yeah.
So they're sort of saying, what do we do when no one knows what to do? I love that question.
Yeah.
So we have to figure it out in real time under stress,
Yeah.
and this is how it feels to be leading a crisis.
Yes.
Which some people will be used to, but most won't, I guess.
And I think, and this may well be where it's going to, but I think despite all of that, this is without doubt the biggest crisis I've ever experienced, witnessed, or been involved in. Nevertheless, what it really is the same as a smaller crisis, just enormously bigger, with more uncertainty, more pressure, more at stake. But the fundamentals are the same. They are just massively more so.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, the response to it is the same fundamentally, in that there is a misconception among some people that a crisis management plan gives you the answers to the specific situation that you're facing. It doesn't. It gives you a really purposeful structure that you can apply to any situation and help you to influence the outcome to the extent that you can.
Yeah, and that's really what they were nailing. You've pretty much pressed what's on here. You've just said it. But you're absolutely aligned, because they're saying there aren't pre-cooked answers in their language.
Yeah.
So you just have to work the process, and this is their view of the best process. So, and then I picked on some of the comments they said about mindset.
Yeah.
I picked up as mindset. So hypotheses, not assumptions.
Yeah.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Said several times. Don't exhaust yourself and your team on the first lap.
Yeah.
And it's not even a marathon, because you know how long a marathon is. This could be an ultra. Who knows? They emphasize resisting that pressure to jump to quick answers on big things, and they also come out that sort of using the wider team. No one is as smart as everyone.
Yeah.
Which some leaders fail at hugely on, I think.
Yeah.
And so, like they're saying it's a process, a structure, people, and the thing that really interests me was the problem-solving method.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe rather than going into that in depth, let's just zoom out, pick up on a few things they did say. This will be bread and butter type stuff around incident management process, people. Mm-hmm. You can see that as it was past the group, etc. That will look fairly familiar to you. And they said so the things that I picked up were things like you could have a core team has more than 3 and less than 30, given that they're talking to organizations of massively different scale. But how does that team operate? How does it, as you said earlier, how does it keep its energy? How does it change shift, etc.? There was some interesting things they said about you could maybe have a wider set of people listening in to some of the core discussions, so that they then you don't have to cascade out everything every day, which I hadn't heard of.
I mean, a couple of thoughts on those considerations. One is, and you've touched on it already, Gary, I mean, the core team size absolutely will depend on the scale of the business for a start. But I would advocate normally the smaller the group, the better, because if it's anywhere near 30, I think making progress is going to be really challenging. I would suggest, between 3 and 8 is an ideal size. You can have larger teams than that, but when you're well into double figures, it becomes difficult to be purposeful. And also the meet 1 or 2 times a day, that can be true, but I would again say, crisis management is not a set of cast iron rules. So you will need to be kind of flexible and evaluate whether 1 or 2 times each day is correct. It won't be one size fits all. And I understand what they're saying about have the next 200 listening in, And I think that's a good idea, so long as it's not listening into the whole thing, but maybe when the main meeting has finished, they then have a 15 to 30-minute debrief where the conclusions and directions and actions are shared with the 200 line managers. You do not want an audience observing the meeting itself, I don't think.
Yeah. As I said, there's probably some eyebrows raised with some of that. But again, if they're talking to like GE or something like that, who could have been represented literally in that room versus smaller businesses.
But I suppose the other reason why I think generally that would not be a good idea is simply because in a crisis you don't have enough resource, so you have to make best use of it. The idea, even if you're massive, of having 200 people effectively observing for, let's say, an hour, when you could have 200 people spending an hour doing something to actually address the crisis, I'm not sure that's best use of their time. Whereas a 15 to 20-minute wrap-up and summary, I can buy into that. I'm struggling to.
As I say, I captured things that captured my attention. So those did. So this next piece will be interesting to test this with you. They said, you'll have heard of this, the Stockdale paradox is key. Which is, you'll know the background to this. It is fascinating to look at, but it's about communicating two things that are actually in tension. That you're honest about the dynamic and dire circumstances you're in, without giving false hope. But you're also creating a rational narrative about how you're going to get through it. That they've emphasized several times as being very important.
I would totally concur with that. It is about being transparent about the situation. Nobody wants fairy tales, but the role of leaders is also to inspire hope in the future. And that, as you say, it's not hope based on a wing and a prayer. It's hope based on, look, the actions we're taking and the facts that we see. So I totally endorse that.
I just as an aside, so my parents are stuck in New Zealand with my sister, so they're safe. In fact, they're quite safe. I'm glad they're with my sister rather than stuck on their own at home. But the thing they're finding hardest is not knowing how long they're going to be there. But it would be easy to say, well, you might be able to get out in May, but then May comes and goes, and that's just so. Sort of trying to settle them in for the long haul and saying, look, we'll travel home. You'll travel home when it's safe to do so, as well as when the flights open up again. So it's challenging. But then when I mentioned this, my sister got a bit antsy that I was comparing her house to a Vietnamese prisoner of war camp, which is where the story originally came from. But anyway, it's so relevant. Quickly then on the method, this is a piece that really interested me. Again, it's that rapid iteration from situation to execution. As the situation is continually changing. And what grabbed me, Jonathan, was when they said there'll be certain things that you won't have any guidebook as to how to deal with, and you'll be back onto the core, your core values, what's really important as you set your decisions, particularly on, I guess, dealing with people or other thorny issues, and continual iteration. And then they mentioned the OODA loop, if you've maybe heard. Right, so I'll just scroll to that. So agile problem solving, OODA loop, which is observe, orient, decide, act.
That makes sense.
And this came from actually it's from military jet fighter pilot who basically said in a dogfight, the pilots that do this faster, that can go around this loop faster than the opponents are the ones that survive, and most effective.
That makes sense.
So it's about that continual cycling around, because the situation is continuing to change. So you're continually going between the situation, options, predictions, and then choose best course, and then an execution, cycling that. But then every now and again you have to check back in with what's most important to you. And
Yeah.
they said a really nice definition of values being things that we would not allow to change, which
Yeah.
I really liked.
Yeah.
And then there was a bit about, how do you make that work effectively?
Yeah.
You know, those are important themes, I think.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Allow the leaders to be in it. So you might need some process and independent facilitation.
Yeah.
Clearly, diversity of thinking, cognitive diversity particularly is important. Creating psychological safety, which is a whole theme in its own right, and then exploring, not taking positions and advocating for them.
Yeah.
And then setting expectations. And then so it was quite a lot just about the personal resilience, that you have to understand that in this agile dynamic situation, people are doing their best.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to work, and you have to keep going around the loop. So I like the dynamic there.
Yeah.
And again, those were some of the things that struck me.
And just on that note up there around the only thing that can guide you are your core values for some decisions, I would say, not almost all decisions need to be in congruence with your core values. Ultimately, the organizations that suffer the most harm in a crisis are those that behave in a way that is incongruent with their values when they're put under pressure and they're found out to be, empty values. So that has to guide everything ultimately.
Yeah, and your comment about your stakeholders will remember how you acted in this time is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it gives opportunity, of course, for companies to step up.
Quite.
Absolutely. And create a reputation that they maybe were struggling with.
Yes, and you don't need to be Machiavellian to actually emerge with deeper trust with your stakeholders because, again, of the fact that it's so memorable. But those organizations that do go above and beyond, they will emerge with, greater loyalty from their team, greater trust and stronger relationships with their customers where they really help them out. Suppliers, it is, without wanting it to be an opportunity, it is an opportunity. Equally, it's a massive trap, as we said, if they don't step up to the mark.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And then, of course, Harvard it's about bigging up their community. The message is almost like, this is what we've been preparing you for.
Yeah.
And they're playing their role in it, just like others are too.
Yeah.
But they were then very positive about, it's about taking care, as the leaders, if you fall over through trying to work it too hard, as well as obviously with the actual virus itself, then you can't help anybody. So I love the phrase, put your own oxygen mask on first. I don't think they said it, but that's sort of what I heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love this quote here: resilience is adaptability personified.
Yeah.
I took that away. So these are some of the things I took away at the end here, Jonathan, just from that conversation.
Yeah.
Just it will last longer than we are assuming.
Yeah.
Assumptions are dangerous. Use hypotheses instead. And we're just that one about being outside uncharted territory, basically, on risk management.
Yeah.
So avoid thinking there's any sort of pre-cooked solutions to this.
Yeah.
And then resilience is adaptability personified. That struck me. So there was a lot came out of that for me. But any sort of final reflections?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that comes out of the final point is kind of a build on the adaptability personified, and also earlier on, they were talking about if it doesn't work, we'll keep trying until it does. Slightly different take on that, or slightly different interpretation of that. I think this is also a time when leaders have to be flexible, adaptive, and nimble. And that also comes with the humility and the courage to relinquish what you said was the decision yesterday, or what you said was what we must do, just to recognize that because of the dynamism of this situation, it's fine to do something different tomorrow than we were doing today. It doesn't mean that I'm getting the days I'm going to confuse on the kind of timeline, but it doesn't mean that yesterday's decision was wrong. Yesterday's decision was right yesterday, but a different decision is right today. And it takes, a nimble, flexible, adaptive, and also humble and courageous leader to be willing to say, what I said we must do yesterday isn't what we must do today. And I think that's something that leaders sometimes struggle with.
Yeah, particularly in a political environment where it's all about unpicking what you did yesterday. We don't have time for that.
No. And, there are, if we think about our political leaders, they are then interrogated on why they are saying something different today. And sometimes that's, fair and appropriate. But actually, in this situation, sadly, no one has all of the answers, but the people that make decisions will influence and move towards a better outcome. If we all just waited until this was all over, in however many months or years' time that is, we would all know the perfect answers, but they'd be irrelevant because the situation would be behind us. We have to make decisions before it's clear what the right decision it is. That's what being a leader is all about.
It's ambiguous. It's VUCA in every way, isn't it? That classic cliched term. Brilliant. Well, that's really, it's good to chat that through with you. I'll
really interesting.
Stop the video now, and hopefully that's of use to more than just the two of us at some point. Okay, if I can work out how to stop this.